Hi, I'm Barbara Rimkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. In 1831, an Exeter fellow named Charles Tash tried to commit murder-suicide after the woman he wanted to marry, Sally Moore, turned him down one final time. He tried to visit her at her mother's house on Cass Street after the rejection, and they let him in, just to talk. He'd brought 2 loaded pistols. Sally didn't really want to talk, and Charles Tash fired once at her and then turned the other pistol on himself. Both of them were injured, but both survived in an unusual triumph for medicine back in those days. There are a lot of weird things about this case. I'll start by saying that we have no idea what eventually became of Sally Moore. We can usually find people through the census or marriage, birth, and death records, but Sally is tough. Her name might be Sally, or it might be a nickname for Sarah. Sarah Moore is a common name. If she left town, we lose her in a sea of other Sally or Sarah Moores. Census records at this time only list heads of household. Her mother was probably Elizabeth Moore, the only woman who was the head of a household on that street. She was probably a widow. But after the 1830 census, she disappears too. There's no paper trail. So we just don't know what happened to Sally. I hope she did well. Charles Tash was the son of Oxford Tash, who was a formerly enslaved Revolutionary War veteran. After the war, Oxford Tash decided to settle in Exeter, where he raised his children and made sure they were enrolled in Exeter's public schools. Charles worked a variety of jobs, mostly service jobs, for a few of the town's notable citizens. Dr. Perry trusted him enough to have him tend invalid patients. He also farmed his small piece of land or worked on other people's farms. He was living with Patience Martin, the widow of Jubal Martin, another black farmer, at the time of this incident. Patience had become quite worried about Charles in the previous days. She called Dr. Perry, and he came over with Dr. John Gilman to check on Tash. They would later testify that he seemed melancholy and depressed. He told them he didn't think it was Sally who opposed the marriage, but her friends. Sally was white, Tash was black. Their solution? Maybe Charles should go to sea. That was considered a way to deal with the damp, drizzly November of the soul. Captain Long of Exeter was about to go on a 2-year trip to the Pacific. Tash was offered the position of steward, which he accepted, but he never made it. The night before he was due to set sail, he visited Sally with the pistols. A trial was quickly held, with Tash pleading insanity. He was represented by 3 prominent local lawyers. It was a tough case, because even the defense had to admit that Tash, a rather mild-mannered man, didn't quite fit the stereotype of deranged lunatic. Nevertheless, the jury found him guilty of assault with intent to kill, but with peculiar circumstances, and asked that he be granted some consideration. He served no time, living out his days in Exeter, where he farmed and dealt in real estate. He never did marry. After his death in 1864, his probate inventory included, among many other things, farm equipment, several umbrellas, swords, steel hunting traps, maps, and at least 3 boxes of books. Clearly, he was a man of varied interests. For more Exeter history, including true crime, visit our website at www.exeterhistory.org.